The morning sun cast long shadows across the Houston Space Command Center as Commander Thomas Reed stared at the strange symbols dancing across his main screen. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, forgotten in the rush of activity that followed the first signal. "Sir, we're getting a clearer transmission now," Lieutenant Amy Brooks called out from her station. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she worked to clean up the incoming signal. The computer is finally making sense of their language. The room fell silent as the alien message began to form into English text. Reed straightened his uniform and cleared his throat. After years of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. The main screen flickered, and a tall blue-skinned figure appeared. Its 4 eyes blinked in an unsettling pattern as it spoke. The computer translated its words with a slight delay. "People of Earth, we are the Galactic Council. Your primitive species has been observed since your first radio signals. The time has come for your world to join the greater galaxy. Under our rule, you will surrender your resources and submit to our authority. This is not a request." Reed's jaw tightened. 20 years in the Space Force hadn't prepared him for this moment. "Get me the president," he ordered, his voice steady despite the shock. While they waited for the secure connection, Amy noticed something odd in the background data. "Commander," she called out, her voice urgent, "I'm picking up scattered signals. Many signals. They're not just sending a message." She pulled up a series of readings on the main screen. "There's a fleet hiding behind Mars. At least 30 ships. They're not here for peaceful contact," Reed said grimly. "They're here to take what they want, whether we agree or not." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Every major military center on Earth received the same message. The United Nations called an emergency session. For the first time in human history, all nations stood together, faced with a common threat. Reed watched as the President of the United States addressed the emergency UN session. Political differences were set aside. Old enemies found common ground. The response to the Council was drafted, reviewed, and approved in record time. At exactly 3:47 p.m. Houston time, Reed transmitted humanity's answer to the waiting Council ships. "To the Galactic Council, we have received your demand. Throughout human history, many have tried to conquer us. All have failed. We will not bow. We will not surrender. We will not submit. Earth stands united. This is our only response." The Council's reply came swiftly. "Your defiance is noted. Your extinction will serve as a lesson to others." "Sir," Amy's voice cut through the tension. "Multiple ships breaking cover from behind Mars. Energy readings are off the charts." Reed grabbed the command center microphone. "All stations, battle positions. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." He turned to his second in command. "Get our ships in the air, all of them, and contact the Mars colonies. They need to activate their defense shields now." The first shots of the war were fired near the Mars colonies. Bright flashes lit up the space around the red planet as Council ships began their approach. Earth's smaller fleet rushed to defend their Mars outposts, despite being outnumbered. But the Council had made a crucial mistake. They expected humanity to break at the first sign of their superior technology. They didn't understand that humans had been preparing for this moment since they first looked up at the stars. Every science fiction story, every space movie, every alien invasion book had prepared them mentally for this day. Reed watched the initial reports come in. The Mars colony shields were holding. Barely. Earth's ships were taking heavy losses, but they were also learning. Every hit, every blast, every explosion taught them something about their enemy's weapons and tactics. "Send word to all Earth defense stations," Reed commanded. "Tell them to study every second of this footage. We need to learn fast." He looked at the tactical display, where the dots representing Council ships were moving closer to Earth. "And get me Project Thunderstrike. Tell them they just got moved to top priority. If they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." As the first day of the war drew to a close, Reed looked around at his tired crew. They had held on, but this was just the beginning. Humanity's greatest test was about to begin, and he silently prayed they were ready for what was coming. The Council had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they had just awakened a sleeping giant. Humanity was going to show them exactly how wrong they were. Captain Robert Hayes watched from the bridge of his ship as the red surface of Mars burned below. The Council's forces had struck hard and fast, targeting the largest colony dome first. If it wasn't for the new shields, everyone inside would be dead. "Status report," he called out, keeping his voice steady for his crew. "Colony shields at 40%, sir," his weapons officer replied. "They're holding, but we can't take much more of this." 3 massive Council ships hung in Mars orbit, their strange purple weapons cutting through the thin Martian atmosphere. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built, each one nearly the size of a small city. Back on Earth, Dr. Laura Mitchell hadn't slept in 3 days. Empty coffee cups littered her lab as she studied the data from the first attacks. Every time a Council weapon hit a human shield, her computers recorded the energy pattern. There had to be a weakness. There was always a weakness. "Look at this," she suddenly shouted, making her assistant jump. "They're shields. They pulse. Every 3 seconds, there's a tiny gap in the energy field. If we time it right." She grabbed her phone and called Space Command. "Get me Commander Reed. Now. I know how to hurt them." Meanwhile, Captain Hayes and his crew were learning the hard way that straight-up fights wouldn't work. The Council ships were too strong, too big. But humans had been fighting stronger enemies for their entire history. "All ships, this is Hayes," he broadcast to his small fleet. "Switch to Plan Delta. Hit, and run only. Make them chase us." The human ships scattered like startled birds, darting between Mars moons. The bigger Council ships turned slowly, trying to track the smaller, faster Earth vessels. Their powerful weapons were useless if they couldn't hit their targets. "Sir," Hayes' radar officer called out, "2 Council ships are breaking formation. They're following different groups." Hayes smiled. This was what he'd hoped for. Send the signal to Dr. Mitchell. Time to test her theory. On Earth, Laura's team had worked fast, modifying the weapons on every ship they could reach. Now, as she watched her screen, biting her lip as Hayes' fleet put her idea to the test. The first shot came from a small Earth ship, perfectly timed to hit when the Council ship's shields pulsed. The blast went straight through, hitting the alien ship's hull. For the first time since the war started, they'd drawn blood. It worked, Laura shouted, pumping her fist in the air. "Quick, send the timing data to all Earth ships." The battle shifted quickly after that. Council ships that had seemed unstoppable suddenly found themselves vulnerable. They weren't used to enemies who could actually hurt them. But the Council had one more trick. From behind Mars came their hidden weapon, a massive ship bigger than all the others. "Mother of God," Hayes whispered as he saw it appear on his screen. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions." The huge ship opened fire, its weapons far stronger than anything they'd seen before. 2 Earth ships disappeared in bright flashes of light. The Mars colony shields dropped to 20%. That's when Commander Reed's voice came over all channels. "Captain Hayes, get your people clear. Operation Surprises go." Hidden in the asteroid belt, Earth's secret weapon was waiting. When the Council focused their attacks on Mars, they didn't notice the small drones that had slipped behind their lines. Each drone carried a modified nuclear weapon, built in secret over the last 3 days. "Drones activated," Hayes heard over his radio. 3, 2, 1. The explosion lit up the space around Mars brighter than the sun. The massive Council ship never saw it coming. Its shields, designed to block attacks from the front, didn't protect it from the blast that came from behind. When the light faded, the giant ship was crippled, drifting sideways. The remaining Council ships quickly retreated, leaving their wounded flagship behind. Hayes looked down at Mars. The colony domes still stood. They'd lost good people today, but they'd also learned something important. The Council could be beaten. In her lab, Laura Mitchell was already studying new data from the battle. "They'll be back," she said to her team. "And next time, we'll be ready for them." Commander Reed's voice came over the general channel. "Good work, everyone. But this was just the beginning. They've seen now that we can fight back. The real war is about to start." As the Earth ships moved to defend Mars, everyone knew one thing for certain. Humanity wasn't going down without one hell of a fight. Major Frank Cooper floated silently in his small ship, hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid. Around him, 20 other ships waited in perfect silence. The asteroid belt had become humanity's best friend, a perfect hiding place for surprise attacks. "Target approaching," his pilot whispered. "Big one. Supply ship, looks like." Through the view screen, Cooper watched the massive Council supply vessel move slowly through the asteroid field. It was surrounded by 4 guard ships, but they were looking in the wrong places. "Remember," Cooper said quietly to his team, "we hit the engines first. No one fires until I give the word." Engineer Grace Taylor, back at the lunar base, had spent weeks studying the burned-out Council ship they'd captured at Mars. Now her discoveries were about to pay off. "The engine cores are delicate," she had told Cooper during the mission briefing. "One good hit in the right spot, and the whole ship will be stuck." Cooper watched the target getting closer. His hands were steady on the controls. "Wait for it. Wait for it. Now." 21 human ships burst out from behind different asteroids. The Council guards didn't know which way to turn. Before they could react, Cooper's team had already fired their first shots, all aimed at the supply ship's engines. Grace's information was perfect. The supply ship's engines died instantly, leaving it stranded. The guard ships tried to fight back, but they were suddenly surrounded by fast-moving human vessels that appeared and disappeared behind asteroids. "This is why you don't bring big ships into an asteroid field," Cooper said with a grin as another Council ship exploded. "Too slow, too easy to trap." The battle was over in 10 minutes. The supply ship surrendered, and its cargo held enough alien technology to keep Grace's team busy for months. But the real surprise came from what they found in the ship's computers. Lieutenant Amy Brooks, who had first spotted the Council fleet at Earth, worked quickly to decode the data. "Sir," she called Commander Reed on a secure line. "You need to see this. They're gathering their main fleet at Titan." Reed studied the information. The Council was planning something big, a massive attack to crush Earth once and for all. But they had made a mistake by letting humans learn about it. "How many ships?" Reed asked. "Over 300, Amy replied. "But sir, their fuel supplies are low. That's why they needed that supply ship we just captured." Reed smiled for the first time in weeks. "So they're running low on resources. Get me Captain Hayes and Major Cooper. I think it's time for Project Thunderstrike." Project Thunderstrike wasn't just one weapon. It was a whole new way of fighting. Grace Taylor had found a way to turn Council technology against them. Every captured ship, every piece of alien equipment, had helped her understand their weaknesses. The plan was simple but dangerous. While Cooper's teams kept attacking Council supply lines, Hayes would lead the main fleet in a direct assault on their base at Titan. The Council would expect humans to run and hide. They wouldn't expect them to attack the largest alien fleet ever gathered. "This is crazy enough to work," Hayes said during the final planning meeting. "They think we're still primitive. They don't expect us to be bold." The night before the attack, Reed visited the lunar base where Grace was installing the last upgrades on their ships. "Can we win this?" he asked her directly. Grace looked up from her work, her face dirty but her eyes bright. "They're stronger," she said, "but we're smarter, and we're fighting for our homes. That matters." The next morning, Earth launched its biggest attack yet. Hayes led 200 ships toward Titan, while Cooper's teams moved into position behind the Council fleet. As the sun rose over Earth that day, everyone knew this battle would change everything. Either humanity would show the Council their true strength, or, well, no one wanted to think about the or. All ships, battle positions, Hayes radioed as they approached Titan. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember what we've learned. Today, we show them what humans can really do. The biggest battle in human history was about to begin, and the Council was about to learn that underestimating Earth had been their greatest mistake. The battle near Titan began with a flash that lit up Saturn's largest moon like a second sun. Captain Hayes watched as the first wave of Council ships exploded, caught completely by surprise by Earth's attack. First wave successful, Lieutenant Daniel Peters reported from his position in the control room. His team had spent weeks breaking into Council communications. Now the aliens couldn't talk to each other without humans listening in. "They're scrambling," Daniel said with a smile. "Their commanders are shouting at each other. They didn't think we'd dare attack them here." Admiral Emma Harrison, newly promoted to lead Earth's space fleet, watched the battle from her command ship. She had divided Earth's forces into 3 groups: Hayes leading the front attack, Cooper's teams hitting from behind, and her reserve force waiting in Saturn's rings. "Council ships breaking formation," her tactical officer reported. "They're trying to surround our main fleet." Emma smiled. "Just as we planned. Signal Hayes to fall back slowly. Make them think they're winning." The Council fleet, still much larger than Earth's forces, pushed forward eagerly. Their huge ships moved to trap Hayes' fleet between them. They didn't notice they were being pulled away from their base on Titan. "Council commanders are celebrating," Daniel reported as he listened to their communications. "They think they've got us running scared." Emma watched the enemy ships move exactly where she wanted them. "Signal Cooper's teams. Start Phase 2. From their hiding places in Saturn's rings, Major Cooper's ships emerge. But they weren't aiming at the Council fleet. Instead, they headed straight for the now poorly defended base on Titan. "Council fleet is turning around," Hayes reported. "They just realized what we're doing." Emma grabbed her radio. "All ships, execute Phase 3. Now." Her reserve force burst out from behind Saturn's largest rings. The Council fleet was caught in the open, stretched thin between defending their base and chasing Hayes' ships. "Fire everything," Emma ordered. "Don't let them regroup." The space around Titan lit up with explosions. Council ships, trying to turn and fight in too many directions, crashed into each other. Their careful formation fell apart. On his small ship, Cooper led the attack on the Titan base. "Grace, I hope your new toys work," he muttered as they approached the base's heavy shields. Grace Taylor's voice came back clear on the radio. "Trust me, Frank. Those shields won't know what hit them." Cooper's ships fired their new weapons. Missiles loaded with technology Grace had reversed engineered from captured Council ships. The base's shields flickered and died. "Base defenses down," Cooper shouted. "All teams, move in." The Council commanders watched in horror as their main base fell. Their fleet, caught out of position, couldn't get back in time to save it. "We're getting a signal," Daniel reported suddenly. "The Council ships, they're retreating." Emma watched as the mighty Council fleet broke apart. Some ships fled toward the outer solar system. Others tried to surrender. The few that kept fighting were quickly surrounded and destroyed. "Status report," Emma called out. "Titan base is secured," Cooper reported. "We've captured their command center intact. Daniel's team is already working on their computers." "Hayes here," came another report. "Enemy fleet is in full retreat. Should we pursue?" Emma looked at her tactical display. They had won a great victory, but she knew better than to get too greedy. "Negative. Secure what we've taken. Let them run." The next few hours were busy as Earth ships secured their victory. The Council's main base in the solar system was now in human hands. Their fleet had been broken, and for the first time, they had run from a battle. In the captured base, Daniel made an amazing discovery. "Admiral," he called Emma excitedly. "I've found their maps. Full details of every Council base and supply line in this sector of space. Emma felt a fierce pride as she looked at her tired but happy crew. Humanity hadn't just defended itself, they had pushed the Council out of the solar system entirely. "Send word to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them Titan is ours. And tell them," she paused, allowing herself a small smile, "tell them we're not stopping here. The counter-offensive has just begun." The Council had started this war thinking humans were weak. Now they were running, and humanity was ready to take the fight to them. General Nathan Wright stood on the bridge of Earth's newest warship, the Thunder Child, as they approached Neptune. The giant blue planet loomed ahead, where the Council had built their last defensive line. "They've got over 500 ships waiting for us," his tactical officer reported. "They're dug in deep around the planet." Nathan nodded calmly. After 6 months of pushing the Council back, they'd finally found where the aliens had decided to make their stand. But humanity had changed since the war began. They weren't the same easy target the Council had first attacked. "Dr. Foster's team is ready," his communications officer said. "They've installed the new weapons on all ships in the fleet." Dr. Rachel Foster had made an amazing discovery. By studying Council technology, she found a way to turn their own shields against them. Each hit would now make their shields weaker instead of stronger. "All fleet commanders, report in," Nathan ordered. One by one, the fleet leaders checked in. Admiral Harrison with the main battle group, Major Cooper's strike teams, Captain Hayes leading the fast attack ships, Lieutenant Kelly Thompson with the new stealth squadron. "Remember the plan," Nathan said to them all. "We hit them from all sides at once. Don't let them use their numbers against us." The battle began with a massive flash as both fleets opened fire. The space around Neptune lit up like fireworks as hundreds of ships clashed. "Dr. Foster's weapons are working," someone shouted. "Their shields are failing." But the Council didn't give up easily. They had learned from their earlier defeats. Their ships moved in tight groups, protecting each other. "We're taking heavy losses on the left flank," Admiral Harrison reported. "They're concentrating their fire on our bigger ships." That's when Lieutenant Kelly Thompson made her decision. Her stealth ships were supposed to wait and attack later, but she saw a chance to help. "This is Thompson," she radioed. "My team is going in. We'll draw their fire away from the main fleet." "Kelly, wait," Nathan started to say, but she had already moved her ships into position. Thompson's stealth ships appeared right in the middle of the Council fleet, causing chaos. The aliens turned their weapons away from Harrison's ships, trying to hit the smaller targets that seemed to appear and disappear at will. "Main fleet, push forward," Nathan ordered. "Don't waste Thompson's diversion." The battle turned into the biggest space fight in human history. Council ships exploded as their weakened shields failed. Human ships darted between the bigger alien vessels, hitting them from all sides. But the Council had one last surprise. From behind Neptune came their remaining supercarriers, massive ships that dwarfed everything else in the battle. "Those carriers are charging something big," Dr. Foster warned over the radio. "Some kind of energy weapon we've never seen before." Lieutenant Thompson saw the danger first. The carriers were aiming at the main human fleet, a shot that could destroy hundreds of ships at once. "Nobody else is close enough," she radioed. "My team will handle this." Before anyone could stop her, Thompson led her stealth ships straight at the carriers. They appeared right in front of the charging weapons. "Kelly, get out of there," Nathan ordered. "Too late for that, sir," she replied calmly. "Been an honor serving with you all. Give them hell for me." The carriers fired. Thompson's ships exploded, but their sacrifice disrupted the weapon's charge, causing a massive backfire. The carriers exploded in a chain reaction that lit up Neptune's skies. "Council fleet is breaking apart," Harrison reported, her voice thick with emotion. "They're running." The defending line was shattered. The Council had lost their last strong position in the solar system, but the victory had cost them dearly. Nathan looked at the space where Thompson's ships had been. "Thanks to her sacrifice, Thousands of others had lived. "Send word to Earth," he ordered quietly. "Neptune is ours. And add this: Lieutenant Kelly Thompson and her crew gave their lives to make this victory possible. Their names will not be forgotten." As the human fleet secured their position around Neptune, Nathan knew the war had reached a turning point. The Council wasn't just losing, they were running scared. The same humans they had once dismissed as primitive were now pushing them back across space. And they weren't done yet. Not by a long shot. Dr. Paul Martinez hadn't slept in 2 days. His lab at the Mars Science Center was filled with warning lights and emergency signals. The Council's latest attack wasn't using bombs or lasers. They had released something into the air of Earth's biggest space colony. "Talk to me, Paul." Commander Reed's voice came through the speaker. "How bad is it?" Paul looked at his screens showing the spread of the strange purple mist. "They're using some kind of biological weapon. It's turning the air toxic. We've sealed off the affected areas. But what? But they're releasing it near every human settlement they can find. They're trying to poison us all." The Council, pushed back to the edges of the solar system, had turned to their darkest weapons. If they couldn't beat humanity in battle, they would try to kill everyone with disease. "How long do we have?" Reed asked. "Maybe 3 days before the sealed areas run out of clean air," Paul answered. "I'm working on something, but I need more time." In space, Captain Susan Bennett led her fleet in chasing down the Council ships that were spreading the poison. Her ships had gotten faster and stronger over the months of war, and now they were hunting their hunters. "Got another one," her weapons officer shouted as they destroy a Council ship before it could release its deadly cargo. "How many more?" Susan asked. "At least 12 ships still out there, spreading that stuff around." Susan gritted her teeth. Her ships could destroy the Council vessels, but they couldn't clean up the poison already released. Everything depended on Dr. Martinez finding a way to fight it. Back in his lab, Paul had discovered something interesting. He found that the Council's weapon wasn't just a poison. It was alive. It was like a very small animal that ate oxygen and left poison behind. "That's it," he suddenly shouted, making his assistants jump. "If it's alive, we can kill it." He worked faster now, testing different ways to destroy the tiny creatures. Earth's scientists had gotten very good at understanding Council technology, and Paul had an idea. "Commander," he called Reed, "I need every ship we have to be ready. I know how to fix this." While Paul worked, Susan's fleet had cornered the last group of Council ships near Jupiter. The aliens were fighting desperately now, like cornered animals. "They're sending a message," her communications officer reported. They say if we don't surrender, they'll release even worse weapons." Susan looked at her screen where another Council ship was trying to run. "Shoot them down," she ordered. "We don't negotiate with people who use poison on civilians." Finally, Paul finished his work. He had found that a simple change to the colony's air filters could kill the Council's weapons. Even better, the dead creatures turned into harmless dust. "Start changing the filters," he ordered his team. "Every colony, every ship, every station. And hurry." The next few days were tense as humans fought against time. Paul's solution worked perfectly. The poison creatures died, and the air became clean again. Not a single human colony was lost. The Council's last desperate attack had failed. Even worse for them, they had united humanity like never before. Every human ship, colony, and station now worked together, angry at the Council's attempt to poison them all. "Council ships are surrendering," Susan reported to Earth Command. "They know they've lost. The ones that aren't surrendering are running away as fast as they can." In his lab, Paul watched the last traces of purple mist disappear from the colony's air. They had faced the Council's worst attack and survived. More than that, they had won. Commander Reed's voice came over the general channel, speaking to everyone. "The Council tried to poison us because they couldn't beat us in a fair fight. They thought we would break. Instead, we've grown stronger." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And now we're going to take the fight to them. It's time to end this war, once and for all." As Paul looked out at the stars through his lab window, he knew Reed was right. The Council's desperate attack had failed. Now humanity would show them exactly how big a mistake they had made. The final battle was coming, and this time, Earth's forces would be the ones bringing the fight to the Council's home. Fleet Commander Thomas Reed stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Defender, as they prepared for the final battle. The Council's home system lay ahead, 6 planets circling a red sun. This was where it had all started, where the aliens who tried to conquer Earth had come from. "All fleets report ready," Admiral Emma Harrison announced. Earth had brought everything. 1,000 ships, carrying the best weapons and bravest crews humanity had to offer. Council forces detected. Lieutenant Amy Brooks reported from her station. "They've gathered everything they have left. Over 2,000 ships." Reed nodded calmly. When the war began, those numbers would have terrified him. Now he just smiled. The Council still hadn't learned that counting ships wasn't enough. "Send the message," he ordered. Amy opened all channels, broadcasting in the Council's own language. "This is humanity. You came to our home. You threatened our people. You tried to poison our children. Now we have come to yours. Surrender or face the consequences." The Council's answer came quickly. Their ships opened fire. "All ships, execute battle plan Freedom," Reed commanded. The human fleet split into 5 groups, just as they had practiced. Emma led the main force straight ahead. Major Cooper's strike teams darted between enemy ships. Captain Hayes took his fast ships high above the battle. The rest spread out in perfect formation. Dr. Laura Mitchell's voice came over the radio from her position on a support ship. "Remember, their home system defenses are stronger than anything we've seen. But they all run on the same power source. Find it, hit it, and they all fall." The space around the Council's homeworld exploded into battle. Their ships were bigger and more powerful than Earth's vessels, but humans had learned to fight smarter, not harder. "Power source located," Cooper reported. "Their main station, behind the third moon. Heavy defenses." Reed looked at his tactical display. The Council had hidden their weakness well, but not well enough. "Captain Hayes, begin your run." Hayes' ships dove through the battle, taking heavy fire but staying on course. Council ships tried to stop them, but Cooper's teams kept them busy, appearing and disappearing like ghosts through their lines. "We're hit," Hayes shouted as his ship shook. "But we're still moving." The Council's commanders were shouting orders, trying to stop Hayes' attack. They didn't notice Emma's main fleet pushing steadily forward, forcing them to fight in too many directions. "Hayes' status?" Reed asked tensely. "Almost there. Almost. Now." Hayes' ships fired everything they had at the power station. At the same time, Emma's fleet launched a massive attack on the Council's front lines. The Council ships turned to face this new threat, leaving Hayes free to finish his run. The power station exploded in a massive flash of light. Just as Laura had predicted, the Council's defensive systems began to fail across their whole system. "Main defenses down," Amy reported excitedly. "Their ships are losing power." Reed grabbed his radio. "All ships, full attack. Don't let them recover." The battle turned into a rout. Council ships, their mighty weapons weakened, couldn't stand against the humans they had once thought primitive. Some tried to surrender. Others fled into deep space. Their proud fleet broke apart like glass. Finally, a new message came from the Council's capital city on their home world. "We surrender, completely and without conditions." The great fleet battle ended as suddenly as it had begun. Humanity had won. Hours later, Reed stood in the Council's main chamber, looking at the alien leaders who had caused so much death and destruction. "These are our terms," he told them. "The Council will be dissolved. All enslaved worlds will be freed. And Earth will lead the creation of a new alliance, one based on respect and cooperation, not fear and control." The council leaders had no choice but to agree. Their mighty empire, built on conquering others, had been brought down by the very species they had thought too primitive to resist. As Reed walked back to his ship, he thought about everything that had happened. The council had attacked Earth thinking humans were weak. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant and united humanity like never before. "Send word to Earth," he ordered as he reached the Defender's Bridge. "Tell them it's over. We've won. And this time, we're building something better." The stars seemed brighter somehow as Earth's fleet began their journey home. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged stronger than ever. The galaxy would never be the same again.